5 minutes. Ship continuing to fire 5 of the 6. Standing by for callouts, making sure ship's on its planned trajectory. Again, we are planning a suborbital trajectory for the ship today. Booster giving us some views as it continues to make its way back down towards the water.
We cut in with a CJD News special report. SpaceX Flight 12 just launched literally 5 minutes ago. We are late to this due to yesterday going on. Let's cut in. It is currently going up to do a super heavy landing. As you see, the statistics from SpaceX. We will continue watching this coverage as it comes in live. Thank you. This is CJD News. We will be covering this whole...
On 5 out of 6 Ship Raptor engines.
Great news there
Planning
for
startup.
Starship. Once again, we were not going to bring the super heavy booster back to the tower. We were planning on having it land in the Gulf.
As you hear the audience in the background, booster is working. Yesterday they were having some issues at T-minus 40 with some pad issues not retracting, but it has been fixed. Let's continue to listen into live coverage.
Engines that are lit. We do have engine out capability. We do see that we have one of the RVAC, one of the Raptor vacuum engines that is currently out, but that's okay. Ship is continuing on. Amazing views of planet Earth there in the background.
Yeah, I love the S39 decal there. That just gives the ship a little bit of character. And again, all these great views brought to you by Starlink, of course.
You will notice on CJD News there's no overlay. That is because we want to show you the statistics and everything going on that is related. Once again, this is a rushed special report. We did not expect it to fully work today. There's more audience clapping and cheering in the background. T plus 7 minutes and 34 seconds. Once again, this is CJD News reporting.
We did see at least a couple engines fire up on booster for that landing burn before we lost contact with it. We should have just a little over 20 seconds to go. We'll see if the burn extends a little bit. For the engine out, essentially you can run your engines a little bit longer or throttle up a little bit more to account for the one engine not being lit. So right now we are standing by for SECO.
As you hear, we are just standing by right now for SECO. The trajectory burn seems like it was successful. Let's continue to listen in.
Five engines still burning on ship. We are coming up on T plus 9 minutes. And starting to see shutdown. RVACs have shut down. Sea levels are shut down.
As you hear, stuff is going well. More applause from an audience. This is a crucial flight test that could get us to the Mars and help with future Artemis missions, which is why this is a CJD News special report. But let's continue to listen in.
Shut down again. We did run longer as we were engine out. We were flying with 5 of those 6 Raptors pretty much the whole time.
Ship FTS is saved.
All right, well, we definitely got a ship in space right now.
As you hear the applause from the audience, everything is going successful. We should expect to come down back to Earth in a few minutes. Altitude is low Earth orbit, but this is an uncrewed test flight of Starship, a major, crucial test, as it is. SpaceX is trying to help NASA with its future Artemis missions and is also trying to land on Mars. Let's continue to listen in.
Yeah. Man, a lot of action going on. And, you know, we said at the top of the show, excitement guaranteed. And we're only 11 minutes in. We still have a lot more to go here on the mission today. So all objectives are done on the booster. So now all eyes are on the ship as we get ready for our in-space objectives.
Exactly. So like I said, we're still standing by to hear the call out for nominal orbital insertion, but we've got a few minutes before the next milestone. So we're going to continue. We've got some amazing views here of the ship. Wow, it's just that this is our planet. This is our home. As a reminder, the objectives for ship today not only included the separation that we saw, but we're also planning to deploy 20 Starlink simulator satellites, as well as 2 Dodger Dog satellites. That's what our internal teams refer to as our newer satellites. We saw a preview of those earlier. We should see those deployments here in a little bit. We're also hoping to perform a relight of a Raptor engine as well.
Yep, that's exactly right. And the relight will look a little bit different this time. We're hoping to get a little bit of a longer duration. Of course, we got to see once we get there. And that relight won't actually be changing our orbit necessarily, but we're doing it more so as a technology demonstration.
For those of you that maybe just recently tuned in, you missed a pretty exciting almost 13 minutes. We had a liftoff pretty much on time, almost right exactly at 5:30 p.m. We did have a brief hold at the T-minus 40-second period, but we were able to proceed through that, and we saw a gorgeous liftoff. Jake and I were able to stand outside and witness that with all of our colleagues, and what a moment. I'll tell you what, it is a heck of a lot louder out here than it was at Ad Astra.
Absolutely. And a couple things I noticed on the way uphill today on the ship. So obviously it looks like we lost one of the RVACs on the way, but that is a good way to demonstrate our potential engine out capability there. So
exactly.
I think we actually saw the 3 gimbaling engines kind of gimbal over a little bit to compensate for that offset and thrust. So that was really cool. That's something I know the team's been, we've analyzed that since Flight 1 all the way back. So it's something that we've thought about quite a bit, and it was kind of cool to see it in action in real life today.
Yeah, absolutely. If you couldn't tell, Jake is on the Raptor team.
Yeah. But one non-Raptor thing I noticed also back on the when we had the shot of the aft flaps, it's a little weird. We have tiles on the leeward side, so not on the side where we're going to see heating. And you might be asking, why are we putting tiles there? I had the same question actually. So I talked to some of our heat shield engineers the other day, and we're actually running. Yeah, here's the shot right here. Great. So the fact that we're seeing all these tiles still on the flap right now is really good, because that actually was one of our experiments where we wanted to test different connection methods on the way uphill on ship, so actually ascent. So it looks like most, if not all, the tiles are still hanging on there, so that's actually a really good data point.
Looks pretty good to me. Now, once again, this view is from the side of Starship, which is basically the second stage of the Starship vehicle as a whole. This is one of the flaps on the vehicle that helps to control its position and attitude as it is orbiting.
As you see here, we are getting ready to do payload deploy. Speed is pretty fast. Altitude, we remain at low Earth orbit. This is, once again, another crucial test for SpaceX, because yesterday they had issues, but today it seems like we are all green. They did have a brief hold at T-minus 40 seconds, but they were able to continue. Yesterday they did have the same hold at T-minus 40 seconds and had to scrub the mission, but today they are continuing it. Let's continue to listen in as SpaceX takes the wheel.
Look like we are within bounds of what we analyzed if we were down one of our RVAC engines, so I wouldn't call it nominal orbital insertion, but we're on a trajectory that we had analyzed, and it's within bounds. So team's continuing to work through it with that engine out. They're working through some steps on the engines. We probably will end up skipping the Raptor relight for today, but it sounds like we should still be on for payload deploy, at least at this time. So very dynamic moments right here with the ship, but we do have it in space. It is on a trajectory now, headed towards the other side of the planet, and then a splashdown in the Indian Ocean. It's going to start to get darker. We're heading into an orbital sunset, so we're gonna have darkness for a little bit, and then it'll brighten up once we're on the other side of the planet, and hopefully looking at some good daylight when we re-enter into the Indian Ocean. All right, so we're a little over 17 minutes into flight. If you're just now catching up with us, we did see a liftoff right at the top of our window. Super Heavy getting off the pad, initially lighting all 33 of those Raptor engines, got through a successful hot staging. Initially lit 6 engines on ship, had 1 RVAC go out on the way uphill, but still able to make it into space. And right now we're trying to see if we are going to get into payload deploy still. We're coming up right on the part of the timeline when we were expecting it. You look inside a Starship there. Oh, I see a door opening. Looks like Hal didn't wait. Pez door is open. Just a reminder, we've got 22 deployables in the payload bay today. 20 of those Starlink mass simulators, and then 2 are our Dodger dogs, as we like to call them internally, sitting up their modified V2 Starlink satellites. Those are going to be testing a bunch of components that we're planning to fly on Starlink V3, and we've also got them outfitted with a number of cameras for another tech demo that we're trying out on this flight. We definitely are looking for a way that we can look at Starship's heat shield while it's still in space. You can kind of only see so much from the cameras and the flaps. You can't see everything kind of on flashlights on them to try and illuminate the ship's heat shield while we fly away from it. So, oh, we see some Pez motion.
I apologize for the technical issues. They should be fully fixed now. Payload deploy successful. Once again, payload deploy is successful.
Two down, 20 to go. as a reminder, that's one of the things that we upgraded in version 3, kind of gave a little soup up to the PEZ dispensers, so those satellites going to move out a little bit quicker than they did on previous Starship flight tests. So first 2 out the door, 2 more on their way out. All right, 4 down, 18 to go.
Everything is going successful and is going well.
Flexing my basic math skills here today. Again, the majority of this stack, 20 of these 22 satellites, they're essentially just mass simulators, so they're roughly the same size as those Starlink V3 sats that we're hoping to fly later this year. And from this top-down view, so you're looking down at the stack, those 2 satellites you see on the very top, that they'll look very different. They've got solar arrays, they've got a bunch of other deployables on them that we're going to be testing out that are going to be V3 tech, and they've got 3 engineering cameras and then 1 other camera that's hopefully going to be giving us some views of Starship in space. But we will see how that works. Again, this very much a tech demo. We're going to deploy those. The satellite's going to kind of try and turn everything on, look back at Starship, and the primary reason we're trying to do this is to get some views of the heat shield. All right, 2 more out the door.
2 more out the door, and I think that counts, or that comes up to 8 total.
As you can tell, the teams are stoked to see this demonstration happening. It's pretty incredible to see this happening live from space. Now, as we noted earlier in the show, but worth repeating, this Starship, version 3, is built to deploy up to 60 of Starlink's more advanced V3 satellites. Everything's V3. Designed to offer 60 terabits per second of downlink capacity per satellite. Now, that is 20 times more than each Falcon 9 does today. Incredible.
All right, I think that's number 10 going out the door. Yeah, there it goes. So yeah, the camera view you have on your left screen there is basically right at the bottom of the payload volume. So the kind of dome-shaped structure you see there that's actually the top of the fuel tank.
Then the camera view that you have on the right is an external camera that we have.
A lot of satellites going out. Everything is going successful for this mission, and this rocket could get us to Mars if we really tried. Once again, this is just a crucial flight test of Starship. Let's continue to tune in as you hear more applause and USA chants.
As we mentioned, we have 20 of these Starlink simulator satellites, and then we have 2 of these specially modified, as we call them, Dodger dogs around here. Those, as Dan mentioned earlier, they have some V3 tech on them, some solar arrays, and those will be the last 2 that will be deployed today.
Yeah, that's right. And seeing this, as I think Dan called them turbocharged or supercharged PEZ dispenser, it's definitely coming out much faster than our previous flights. So that is really good to see. Yeah, look at that. And especially once we, fill Starship up all the way with around 60 or so of these Starlinks, being able to deploy them fairly expediently is going to be important for designing the overall mission profile.
Yeah. Now, fans of Starship may know that Starlink enables lots of unprecedented views, both from space, as we see here, and on Earth. In addition to the dozens of cameras on Starship itself, we also have mobile Starlink camera kits deployed in the Indian Ocean.
Yes, Starlink also connects our aerial cinematography units on the ground at Starbase and at other strategic camera spots around Texas.
It's all part of how it all comes together to tell the incredible story of Starship both on and off planet.
Yep.
All right, we're getting low on the stack. It looks like we got 2 more of those simulators to go out, and then it will be time for our Dodger Dogs, those modified Starlink satellites. Just a couple of updates while we can.
Seems like we are having a little bit of issues, but this is an update.
Skipping that relight of the Raptor engine, just due to everything that we saw on the way uphill. Those sea level engines, we're going to use them for a landing burn, though. They are still capable to be used for that. So we'll still look to do a controlled landing in the Gulf, but no in-space relight. All right, I think that's 19 and 20 headed out the door. And then coming up are our Dodger Dogs. So these are modified V2 Starlink satellites. We do have a number of cameras on these that are going to attempt to look back at Starship. We're not going to get this video in real time, but we're going to try and turn it around if we do get some video down. So don't worry, if we get views of Starship from these satellites, we will be sharing. And these will be exciting because, again, they're really a tech demo, getting our chance to test out some of the technologies for version 3. All right, I think that's 18 and 20. My basic math skills are failing now. All right, here we go.
We're standing by for Starship, basically to serve the first Dodger Dogs to low Earth orbit.
And one out the door. And from this view, you can kind of see on the right side of the satellite, you see some bright white spots. Those are our flashlights. Beneath them, the camera is going to attempt to look back and image Starship's heat shield as it flies slowly away from the vehicle. And there it goes. Let there be light.
Yeah, it almost looks like the light is just shining right at us there.
If you couldn't tell, we're pretty excited.
Yeah.
It is
You hear
always sunny.
SpaceX control room very excited. The Dodger Dogs are now out. We will see what's going to happen as their second trajectory burn has been canceled, it looks like. We will continue bringing you updates. This is CJD News. Back to SpaceX.
Yeah, with payload deploy complete, Starship will now close its... Starship, we closed the payload door, and we're going to continue to coast around Earth all the way to the Indian Ocean. So still a lot of major events to come today. Sounds like we're not going to hit that Raptor relight, based on what Dan was saying, but after that, of course, we'll have the atmospheric reentry and splashdown. And with that, we're going to go on another quick coast.
So sit tight, enjoy some amazing space views and the space jams, of course. And we'll be back in a few minutes for Raptor relight, or excuse me, not for the relight, but we'll be standing by for atmospheric reentry.
As you hear, we are waiting for atmospheric re-entry. they are going to play some music, as this seems like an ad break to them. So, the Raptor relight has been canceled. That is a trajectory burn. Now, as I was saying, yesterday they did have some issues at T minus 40 seconds. Seems like with a launch pad issue, if I pull it up actually, we can read some posts here. Let me get that up and going. They are on an ad break currently. The view you are currently seeing is actually the spaceship itself, the flight test. And as you see, not on your screen, but as you hear from SpaceX posts, the Starship has successfully deployed the modified Starlink satellites and simulators. There are live views being brought actively. There is liftoff, which we will replay. And 32 minutes ago, which was about a minute before they launched, T minus 40 seconds and holding. Teams are using this time for final checks. All systems continue to look good for today's flight test. And then a minute later, you see clock has resumed counting down. Now, yesterday, there were a lot of issues, but a lot of prop loads were happening and flight tests were happening. Countdown was not doing well. And as Elon Musk posted yesterday when they were having this issue, the hydraulic pin holding the tower arm in place did not retract. If that could be fixed tonight, there will be another launch attempt tomorrow at 5:30 CT. As of right now, it is 6:02 CT, and it did launch as it was posted yesterday. But when they were having issues, they posted T minus 40 seconds and holding. Teams are using this time for final checks. All systems continue to look good for today's flight test. Clock has resumed counting down. The clock has recycled the T minus 40 seconds, standing down from today's flight test. That was all yesterday's information. Today it seems like everything now is being successful. We are expecting good trajectories, except that one burn that they could not do, which was for safety, but this is also an uncrewed test flight, and the third generation Starship space rocket, We will go on a quick break. We will be back as soon as SpaceX returns, but right now we are just waiting for splashdown to occur soon, which will happen in the Indian Ocean. Stay tuned. As you see the door opening again, there is applause in the background, but due to the stream having audio we cannot play, we will give live commentary. As you see what looks like a camera at the door. Re-entry is going to happen soon. We are at T plus 38 minutes and 7 seconds. This is a test flight of Starship, and they want to use Gen 3 rocket as the rocket to bring humans to Mars. SpaceX is back, so we can now enable the audio. SpaceX, roll it over.
Again, this is a view from one of those satellites as we deployed. It looks like this was from the last one out. Flashlight turning on, taking a look at Starship in space. The way this system is set up is the satellites are essentially recording it, then making contact with our Starlink constellation, and then transferring that video back down to us on the ground. That's a Starship in space. So aside from just being really cool, this was our test to try and develop a free flyer that we could fire outside of Starship's payload bay, look back at it, and then do essentially a pirouette with Starship to get a look at the heat shield, where it's going to be really important when we start bringing these things back for a catch, which we are hopefully doing in the not too distant future, as they are intended to be fully reusable. But this will give us an opportunity to look at the heat shield while Starship is still in space. So there was a glimpse. We'll see if we get any more video down from those satellites. But I mean, that's one we've been chasing for a while. So really cool to see it come to fruition here on Flight 12. All right, coming up on 40 minutes into the flight, and we should start hitting the reentry period in the next 7 minutes or so. You'll start to see a light show building up. As we had talked about, we did skip that on-orbit relight of the Raptor engine. It was not needed for our trajectory or anything. We are on this suborbital trajectory to splash down in the Indian Ocean. We are going to attempt a landing burn. We'll see how they perform when we get there. And just a reminder, we are going to be stressing the ship on the way in. We're going to intentionally do a maneuver where we're going to kind of pitch the nose up and deploy those bottom flaps to really put a lot of pressure on them. So we'll see how it does through that maneuver, and then we'll be doing kind of a final banking turn before we get to a landing burn. So all that coming up in a few minutes. The light show should start beginning real soon.
As you just heard of what was going on and what we saw, that was a satellite showing Starship with the door open and the satellite exiting. That is pretty cool how they could do that. But once again, this test flight, this is supposed to help humans eventually go to Mars, which has never been done before. We've landed on the moon and landed on Venus. Venus was a while ago done by the Soviet Union. And as you know, we have been covering Artemis, which plans on building a long-term moon mission, moon base, which will help us get to Mars eventually. SpaceX is trying to go straight to Mars, and the Starship test flight will help exactly that. We are expecting in about 5 minutes for re-entry and splashdown in the Indian Ocean, to where crew teams will recover the Starship and then go to inspection on the heat shield, because re-entry is the most dangerous part of any mission, because with Artemis, re-entry for Artemis 2, humans were traveling down back at Earth 39 times the speed of sound, which is fast, causes a heat shield to... a heat shield's needed, because It's like a big plasma ball flying back into Earth and entering gravity. As you see the live views of Starship test flight, they have deployed many of satellites, about 25, I believe. This is a crucial test flight, as I keep saying, which is why it's being covered in a CJD News special report. We will continue bringing live coverage. For now, enjoy the moon, so I'm sorry, not moon, the Starship flight test cameras.
test flight of Starship version 3. As Dan mentioned earlier, we were able to make contact with the modified satellites just shortly after deployment. And as you may have seen, we got some sweet views of those sats looking back at the ship. Pretty cool to see.
Yeah, those views were incredible.
Now, as you see on your screen, currently the ship is re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. This is the plasma starting to build up on the exterior of the vehicle. Now, we do not plan to recover the spacecraft today, but rapid and reliable reusability is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, that's right. And re-entry is a critical phase of flight, and we need information on how the ship's systems perform. Re-entry is an extremely demanding portion of flight where we essentially have to scrub all of the energy we use to launch the rocket back off in reverse. So the 18 million pounds of thrust that we had off 33 of those Raptor engines.
Just a little.
Just a little. We're now, and then another, several minute burn on the ship. We're now basically undoing all that energy here via aerodynamic braking, essentially. And of course, Starlink is a big part of it, as that's what allows us to actually gather this data and show these live views. And again, the data gathering is really the main reason why we're doing these flight tests. So Starlink provides us just one more path to collect that data that ultimately allows us to rapidly iterate Starship's design.
Now, if ship manages to make it all the way through re-entry, we'll collect valuable data on the spacecraft flying through the Earth's atmosphere at these hypersonic speeds, which is basically more than 5 times the speed of sound. Now, we do anticipate that it might be a little bit of a spicy re-entry, so we'll see how far we get. Re-entry is typically a portion of flight where we don't have communications with the spacecraft because it's re-entering at or around orbital velocity, roughly 8 kilometers per second, or for those of us that think in other units, roughly 5 miles per second. At those speeds, the spacecraft is moving through the atmosphere, and it creates that plasma field that we saw forming around the vehicle.
Yeah, and although the plasma looks really cool, it does distort some communication frequencies. So it's not uncommon to experience brief blackouts in communication. Of course, thinking long-term here, Starship is designed to land on Mars where there are no runways or other humans to help out. That's why we're going with the propulsive landing instead of a more traditional means like parachutes. Propulsive landing, not only, again, is it more cool, but it enables a more rapidly reusable rocket.
Yeah. Now, we should hear some call-outs as the ship makes its way back to Earth. When we hear entry max heating and entry max Q, that means the ship has made it through the maximum heating and aerodynamic loads that it will experience as it returns. So if we make it through those, we're doing pretty well.
Yeah. And you can see in the bottom left right now, we're at 23,500 kilometers per hour speed. That's just a crazy number to think about. But as we keep progressing in the mission, we are going to hear a call out when the ship is transonic and then subsonic. So transonic refers to the period of flight where the velocities of airflow surrounding and flowing past the vehicle are concurrently below, at, and above the speed of sound, kind of in that Mach 0.8 to 1.2 range. And for reference, commercial jets have a range of cruising speeds, but mostly fly around Mach 0.74 to Mach 0.85. And after we hear the call out that Starship is transonic, we should hear the call out when Starship is subsonic. This refers to speeds that are much less than the speed of sound, so at this point in the flight, ship's velocity will be slowing down.
We definitely have a crowd still here in the lobby of SpaceX headquarters down here at Starbase, Texas. Everyone is, loves watching ship re-entry. It's always such amazing colors. This must be what it feels like to be one of those praying mantis shrimp. Can't remember exactly what the name is, but the ones that see in billions of colors. This is the closest I feel to being one of those.
Yep. I think one other thing that's cool to point out right now is Look in the bottom right, you can see where we are on a globe there. We're squarely in the Indian Ocean already, and we've only been flying for 53 minutes.
Yeah.
So pretty crazy. We went all the way from Texas to the Indian Ocean in less than an hour.
Yeah. She flies pretty fast.
She
that
flies
is for
very
sure.
fast.
All right, so the light show continuing. We are through the period of peak heating, and we'll be looking at the peak pressure coming up in the next couple of minutes. The next 10 minutes are probably going to be the spiciest of entry today. As a reminder, we are going to be doing some stress work on this ship, where we're going to do a maneuver where we kind of kick the nose up to fully deploy those aft flaps to really get a good test of the structural strength of that part of the ship. We did that on one previous flight test on version 2. We're going to try and do that today. Since we did skip the in-space burn, we're carrying a little bit of extra propellant in our header tanks up in the nose, and so that's going to put a little bit of extra stress on those forward flaps as we come in. So we will see if they're able to hold through that reentry. So that will be another watch item. We did skip that in-space burn, but we are expecting at least 2 of those sea level engines to try and ignite for a landing burn. We entered the entry period in a good attitude, so hopefully making our way to the targeted splashdown point. We've got that Starship recovery team standing by, and we should be about 10 minutes away from splashdown. So a lot of excitement over the next couple of minutes. Kate and Jake, let's see how Starship holds up on the way in.
Yeah, and we just heard on the nets there that engine chill has started. So essentially what that means is we are...
So, about 10 minutes until splashdown. As you see the light show, we are entering Earth, perfectly centered in the Indian Ocean, according to SpaceX. We will let SpaceX continue this, as this is a crucial moment to test out the heat shield, and as they did say, that this should help us go to Mars. And 53 minutes, they said, from Texas to the Indian Ocean. That's pretty impressive and fast. Let's continue to listen in, and the speed is continuing to slow down.
We're really going to be testing the structural strength of these flaps on the way in. Again, this is a flight test. We're trying to intentionally find where our limits are. And in this view, you're looking at a whole bunch of tiles. I think Jake talked about it earlier. We bonded some additional tiles to the leeward, or kind of the metal side of Starship, to see how those different bonding techniques would hold up. And looking like we've got quite a bit still attached.
Yeah, and as we're going down through the atmosphere here, we are at about Mach 16.1. So still extremely fast, although we have, scrubbed off a substantial amount of our speed already. Altitude at a little less than 60 kilometers.
All right, we're about 8 minutes away from our targeted landing and splashdown time. Again, this is when the ship's going to start really
Ship
getting
is
put
approaching
through
the
ringer.
end of the peak heating region.
Just heard the call out, getting to the end of the peak heating, so the highest temperature the Starship's going to see during its reentry.
This camera angle changes as it is attached to the forward flap on Starship. So we're actually experiencing the articulation of that hardware, helping to steer the ship down for its precise landing in the Indian Ocean.
Yep, that is just a really cool, kind of cool piece of perspective there. I know some people say it makes them a little seasick, but I definitely love it. It makes it feel like you're really riding along with the ship on the way down.
Yeah, and aside from just looking cool, all these camera views providing just really critical data on how the heat shield, how the flaps themselves are holding up. That's why we've got these in the flaps and then all scattered all around the ship so you can see how they hold up. There's some internal to the vehicle too that, and we're getting all of this video back via Starlink, even as we're just enshrouded in plasma. We're able to kind of operate at a high enough frequency to punch through, and that is blue ocean and sunlight you're seeing just beyond the flaps. So we are coming down into daylight, hopefully splashing down in the next 6 minutes or so in the Indian Ocean. We've still got a couple maneuvers lined up where we're going to be really stressing the flaps on the ship. So
Ship has passed through the peak heating region. External temperatures are coming down.
Wow, that is incredible news. As Dan mentioned, we were expecting this reentry to be super spicy, but excellent news that we're now past that period of peak heating and that now the external temperatures are starting to decrease. Those heat shield tiles there on the belly of the ship really doing a ton of work to burn off all of that inertia that the vehicle had prior to re-entering the atmosphere.
Yeah, and you can tell by the G meter down on the bottom right that we're starting to pick up a couple more Gs here, so we're definitely entering the thicker part of the atmosphere where we're scrubbing off all that energy, like Kate's saying.
all right, just about 5 minutes or so to go. We're coming up shortly on the maneuver where we're going to, it's affectionately called the flap slap, where we're going to kind of pitch the nose up on the ship, and you're going to see those aft flaps, the ones in the very bottom, fully deploy.
Ship is at peak dynamic pressure.
And we're now at peak pressure.
Ship flap load test has started.
As you see, we are about a little over an hour and 1 minute in. We are still doing re-entry. The heat shield is doing well from what we know. Speed is decreasing rapidly,
Looks like it's
and it
holding.
seems like we are on a good trajectory.
Again, the intent of that was to put just a lot of extra stress on those aft flaps. We are expecting the forward ones too to see a little bit of extra stress as we've got a little more propellant in our header tank, so the area right at the very nose of
Ship
Starship.
flap load test is complete.
And we're through that test.
There we go. And we just did that test at Mach 7, just for reference there. So we are still going incredibly fast.
All right, we are just about 3.5 minutes or so away from our targeted landing burn. Again, we're expecting to try and see 2 of these Raptor engines light for the landing burn. Normally we plan for 3, but we're going to give it a try with 2. Hopefully we've got
Ship is
Seren.
starting the RTLS banking maneuver.
And that right there, so we're starting a banking maneuver, and essentially what that is when we come back to Starbase, or when we plan to come back to Starbase, the trajectory is designed so we'll essentially swing out over the Gulf and do a swoop maneuver to then come back to the towers for catch. And so we are doing that exact same maneuver as we head towards our targeted splashdown in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, and that call out there that we heard, RTLS, stands for Return to Launch Site. So definitely a pretty cool thing we're demoing here on the ship. You know, as in the future, we are going to be trying to bring the ship back to the launch site, which is going to be absolutely insane.
Absolutely. But of course, we want to test out these maneuvers, these principles prior to actually bringing the hardware back to the pad. This is the same reason why we were intentionally not trying to bring the booster back to the pad. So we're trying all these things out in this developmental phase of the vehicle, and really proving what a test flight is.
Absolutely.
Dynamic pressure is coming down.
All right, we heard there dynamic pressure coming down, and I'd say we're in a pretty good bank right now.
Yeah, executing the power slide. We're about 90 seconds away from our anticipated landing burn. Clouds coming up, pretty sunrise on the other side of the planet.
Starship is subsonic and is on target.
The crowd here reacting to that call out, letting us know that we are on target for this precise landing in the Indian Ocean. This will once again be a soft splashdown. We should get some pretty cool views from the recovery team who we chatted with earlier. They are standing by to receive this ship. Once again, this is the first flight of our completely redesigned Starship version 3.
Yeah, and if you remember the suborbital flights from a few years ago, this is very much the same regime that we're in here. So we're sub 15 kilometers executing what we call the belly flip maneuver.
Yes, serial number 8, the first belly flop. I remember it well. Just some really amazing views of the Earth as the ship is coming back home. Thanks, Starlink.
Yeah, you can see the aft flap there making minor corrections.
Starship is turning for final approach to landing site.
Look at that turn.
There we go. Minor corrections and a full turn.
Yeah, Starship doesn't fly like an airplane. It's a lot more like a skydiver. Full belly flop on the way down, using those flaps similar to arms to help change the path of the air over you. Coming up real soon. Again, going for a landing burn, trying to light 2 of these Raptor sea level engines.
Landing burn startup.
Landing burn startup. 2 engines lit. Successful flip. Buoy cam
Starship is
catching
landed.
it.
Starship lands successful. This has been what seems like a successful test. Oh! Please stand by.
Amazing. That ball of fire is exactly what we wanted to see for the ship today. As weird as it may sound to hear, but it is the truth.
Absolutely wild. At the beginning of the show,
We're pretty hyped.
we guaranteed excitement at the beginning of the show, and I'd say Starship delivered.
Absolutely. An incredible day for Starship. That was the first flight of that completely redesigned vehicle. As you can tell, the teams are incredibly proud of what we just saw.
Yeah, V3 definitely showed up. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've pretty happy crowd in the control room behind me, I will say. It's probably the most excited I've seen a lot of people in a really long time. On target landing. Wow. Actually, let's jump over. Hey, Tyler, how's everyone holding up in Hawthorne?
We're having a great time, Dan. Thank you so much. That was another exciting Starship flight in the books, and we hope that you enjoyed those awesome Starlink views. So congratulations to the team at Starbase and everyone here and around the company. So many employees have contributed to the Starship program as we continue to iterate and make progress towards a multi-planetary future. So that wraps it up for us here in Hawthorne. Thank you guys for tuning in. And back to you, Dan.
All right, thanks. So just to recap,
This will conclude our CJD News special report of the Starship Crucial Test Flight 12. As you did see there, an explosion at the end. As soon as I said it was successful. How convenient. They want that though, because this is obviously a test and tells them what to improve. Thank you for joining. This has been a CJD News special report. I'm CJ Dukers.